blood, come the prince that was promised, and his will be the song of ice and fire.
Welcome back, Watchers Beyond the Wall. My name is Monica, and if you don't know who I am, I post videos pertaining to a Song of Ice and Fire content, and a little bit of whatever is on my mind. Here, we deep dive and overanalyze re-watching shows and movies over and over again to understand what the writer is trying to tell us. Without further ado, brace yourselves for rewatch. The Sovereign, sitting over the 7 kingdoms of Westeros, lays claim to the prestigious titles of the king over the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men. These principles of the ethnic groups largely maintaining that of Westeros' inhabitants, among the Rhoynar originating from Essos, later in conquering Dorne, and establishing ethnic ties among the Andals and the First Men. The First Men, being the first human inhabitants of the culture arriving to the continent, had left a lasting imprint on Westeros society, maintaining in the evident within Northmen. The ruler sit upon the Iron Throne. Also, the Lord of the 7 Kingdoms establishes authority as the monarch who rules over these ethnic groups. The Andals, fearing enslavement from the Valyrian Freehold, had to free their own home, Andals, invading Westeros.
The last of the great migrations into Westeros happened long after the coming of the First Men and the Andals. Once the Gheskari Wars had ended, the Dragon Lords of Valyria turned their gaze toward the west, where the growth of Valyrian power brought the Freehold and its colonies into conflict with the peoples of the Rhoyne.
A significant historical change, as many kingdoms from the First Men fell in the invasion. Despite the equilibrium that was established during the Pact of the Children of the Forest and the First Men, the Andals obliterated and destroyed the peace. Additionally, the Andals included the faith of the 7 within the realm, adoctrinating and wiping out the religion that the First Men and the Children of the Forest practiced. Originally inhabiting the vast river of Rhoyne in Essos, the Rhoynar were seafaring people who endured conflict with Valyria's forces with their fleet, incurring to Dorne within the location of the southern part of Westeros. While many Rhoynar integrated into Dornish society, particularly along the salty Dornishmen, a fraction of the orphans of the Greenblood maintain their Dornish heraldry and language, particularly within the cultural atmospheres within the region. History of the Rhoyne. The Rhoyne forms by the Upper Rhoyne and Little Rhoyne, beginning southwards of Greenjoin in eastern Essos.
The mightiest river in the world, the Rhoyne's many tributaries stretched across much of western Essos. Along their banks had arisen a civilization and culture as storied and ancient as the old empire of Gis.
It widens into a vanishing river where its shores can't be seen from a specific distance, within the Valine meeting it from the northern part of Volantis, forming a massive delta between where the city sits. Volantis is connected by the Long Bridge spanning across the main Rhoyne. The Rhoynar, with their distinct features, have slender builds, olive skin, black hair, and dark eyes, sharing similar traits of the people of Mearn, sparking controversial theories amongst the maesters. Diverging from Andal customs, the Rhoynar practice equal primogeniture.
The Rhoynish cities were elsewise fiercely independent, each with its own prince or princess. For amongst these river folk, women were regarded as the equals of men.
And is accepting of same-sex partners. Originally from city-states, their rule was titled princes and princesses, influencing Dornish custom. Spiritually, they revered river-themed deities like Mother Rhoyne, the Old Man of the River, and the Crab King. Art and music flourished in their cities,
The Rhoynar had grown rich off the bounty of their river. Mother Rhoyne, they named her. Fishers, traders, teachers, scholars, workers in wood and stone and metal,
reflecting their peaceful nature. Yet, they were fiery and independent, but if they were provoked, they would fire back. Settlements along the Rhoyne included Ny Sar, Rhoyne, and Volantis, with tributary towns like Gorium, Droyand, and Kraha. River pirates lurk around Dagger Lake, while the old man of the river inhabited its waters. During the long night, the Rhoynish possibly froze westward. The Rhoyne inhabited city-states along the river and were mostly peaceful, while they surrounded by savages tribes that could have been Dothraki. Valyrian Wars. Valyria's Freehold, often referred to as an empire, was a vast civilization spanning the eastern continent, expanding towards the free cities Dragonstone near Westeros. Valyria, its capital, boasted of advanced civilizations, cultures, and military outposts, mainly inhabited and governed by the nobility families known as lords or freeholders, with the most influence deriving from them being dragon lords and riders. Expanding westwards, beginning after the conquest of the old empire of Gis, leading to the establishment of Atlantis as its initial colonies. The Rhoynar, not hindered by the further expansion, as the Valyrians had set their sights on the Andals. The Rhoynish Wars were chronicled in Baldurkit's history of the Rhoynish Wars, with a series of conflicts between the Rhoynish city-states and Valyrian colonies from around 950 BC to 7 BC. The First Turtle War marked the onset on the Rhoynish Wars, a prolific conflict spanning approximately 2.5 centuries between the Valyrian Freehold and the cities Voluntaries and the Rhoynish cities Sawmel. Legend has
that the clash began when the Valyrians netted and butchered one of the gigantic turtles the Rhoynar called the Old Men of the River, and held sacred as the consorts of Mother Rhoyne herself.
the war ignited when the Valyrians slew one of their great giant turtles, an old man of the river. This conflict started the wars that we know today. The old men of the river are considered sacred by the Rhoynish as the mother of the Rhoyne. Lasting less than a month, the First Turtle War was characterized by its brutality and bravery. Sir Mal suffered raids and devastations, yet emerged victoriously through the intervention of Rhoynish water wizards.
Their people had their own magic, a water magic very different from the sorceries of Valyria, which were woven of blood and fire,
Who had weaponized the river's magic and flooded the voluntaries' cities in a cord upholded true half of the city had been submerged underwater. Princess Nymeria. The calculated war emerged during the Second Spice War when the Valyrian colony Volantis redirected its focus towards the ancient civilization of the Rhoyne.
This series of conflicts reached a bloody climax 1,000 years ago in the Second Spice War.
Prince Garin of Corn led a formidable army of 250,000 soldiers, achieving victories against Valyrian's forces at Selharis, Valiza, and their greatest triumph at Zavoluntaries, where they vanquished 100,000 troops and slayed 3 dragons.
Declared the greatest of them, Garin of Corien, this warrior prince called upon his fellows to join with him in a great alliance to wash away every Valyrian city on the river.
However, the Valyrians retaliated with a formidable force of 300 dragons, resulting in the capture of Garin the Great and the dispatch of Valyrian armies by the vanquishing of Dragonfire. In response, Princess Nymeria of Ny Sar
Princess Nymeria soon received the news of Garen's shattering defeat and the enslavement of the people of Rhoyne and Sarmel.
Led the remaining Rhoynish in a mass exodus from Essos until they settled in Dorne. Legend holds that her fleet of 10,000 ships only carried women and children, showing the impact of the loss during the wars raging within the conflicts of the Freehold. In the aftermath of Valyria's doom during the Century of Blood, Norvus and Cothor employed fire galleys at Dagger Lake to overthrow Valyrians' domination over the northern region of Rhoyne. Valyrian galleys continued pirating the Rhoyne southern region, while Great Norvus and Cothor continued its overwater and search segments north of Cahrain, respectively. The waters between Norhries and the Saros had become a place of pirating, attributing to the result of the doom. The 10,000 ships. While the legend often claims that Nymeria accompanied with her 10,000 ships, Boulder Court's history disagrees with how much the Rhoynish War had and the inflated number. While she did have to have thousands of ships to even haul that many people over to Dorne, the number is debated.
Princess Nymeria led her Rhoynar across the narrow sea on 10,000 ships to flee their Valyrian pursuers. She took Lord Mors Martell of Dorne to husband and burned her own fleet off Sunspear to show her people that they were finished running.
Many a great ships, many watercrafts, pole boats, trading galleys, fishing boats, rafts, and pleasure barges, accompanied with women, children, and old men, but only possibly 10 were seaworthy, Balder claims. Nymeria led her ragged ships down the Rhoyne past ruined towns and fields of corpses. To avoid Volantis and the Dragonlords, Nymeria chose an older channel and emerged into the summer sea, where Sarhoy once stood.
For the next 3 years, the Rhoynar wandered the southern seas, seeking a new home.
The following voyages were long and hard, terrifying to say the least. Most of the ships sank within the first storm. As many or as more were taken by fear, turning back only to be captured by slavers out of Atlantis.
Accordingly, she gathered every ship that remained upon the Rhoyne, large or small, and filled them full of as many women and children as they could carry, for almost all the men of fighting age had marched with Garen and died. Down the river, Nymeria led this ragged fleet.
Others fell behind or got lost in the ruins, never to be seen again. Nymeria's fleet first landed in the Inport Isles of Sunnerbisk, where they paused to refresh on fresh water and provisions, only to be descended upon by the local pirate kings.
Nymeria's voyage was long and terrible. More than 100 ships foundered and sank in the first storm her fleet encountered. As many or more turned back in fear and were taken by slavers out of Volantis. Others fell behind or drifted away, never to be seen again.
The corsets offered to allow the Rhoynar to settle on the Isle of Toads in exchange for their ships and 50 virgins each year for each king as a tribute. Nymeria refused. She took her fleets to the sea once more, hoping to find refuge on Sithor Isle. Nymeria set sail at Xanathar, while others settled at Yin or founded new towns. However, the Rhoynar never flourished, either falling prey to illnesses, diseases, and the dangers of the jungle, getting attacked by slavers and the native population. After 2 towns were sacked by slavers and the Rhoynar settled in Yi vanished, Nymeria summoned her people back to their ships and they set sail once more.
When the sails were raised again, some of the Rhoynar abandoned Nymeria to follow a priestess named Druselka, who claimed to have heard Mother Rhoyne calling her children home. But when Druselka and her followers returned to their old cities, they found their enemies waiting, and most were soon hunted down, slain, or enslaved.
For 3 years, Nymeria's fleet voyaged and passaged through the Western Sea. The Rhoynar attempted to settle in Noth, where the locals were peaceful people, but they were soon driven out by disease. In the Summer Isles, the Rhoynar settled in an uninhabited so-called Island of Women for more than 2 years. The princes of the island refused to allow them to settle on the larger island, fearing the wrath of the Freehold. Soon as they arrived, the island was poorly soiled and yielded little to no food, so the disease and the slavers took their toll. Some of the Rhoyne abandoned Nymeria to follow a priestess named Druselka to return to their cities along the Rhoyne, only to be enslaved or later slayed by their enemies. Following Nymeria and the remaining of her fleet, they sailed towards Westeros.
Most of these Dornish lords viewed the Rhoynar as unwelcome interlopers, invaders, with queer foreign ways and strange gods, who should be driven back into the sea whence they'd come.
Although the less seaworthy ships settled at the Stepstones or were blown off course to the Isles, to Lys and Tyrosh, or gave themselves up to the slavers of the free cities rather than die at sea, Nymeria and her ships finally made landfall on the coast of Dorne, near the mouth of the Blood River, near the mouth of the river Green Blood, near the mouth of the river Green Blood, not far from Sand Ship, the ancient seat of House Martell. Dorne, the easternmost region of Westeros, is a vast peninsula ruled by House Minorance Martell, where lords bear the title of prince and princess in the Dornish tradition. Their seat is Sunspear, surrounded by sprawling shadow cities.
There are no cities in Dorne, though the so-called Shadow City that clings to the walls of Sunspear is large enough to be counted as a town built of mud and straw, it must be admitted.
Notable houses in Dorne include Illyrium, Blackmount, Dane, Fala, Jordan, Corgile, Celtigar, Halen, Alon, Vaith, Weil, and Ironwood. Characterized by its scorching heat, Dorne's described as being rugged.
Only a Dornishman can ever truly know Dorne, it is said. The southernmost of the 7 kingdoms is also the most inhospitable and the strangest.
Arid landscape, majority of its rocky mountains, and the continent's sole desert source. Bound by the Sea of Dorne to the north, the Stepstones to the east, and the Summer Sea towards the west. The region separates it from the Stormlands and the Reach by its imposing red mountains. 2 key passageways are the Boneways and the Prince Pass, cutting through these mountains in the Dornish marsh. Dorne's geography includes dry and sultry soil in the east and red and white sand in the west. Dorne's geography includes dry and sultry soil in the east and red and white sand in the west. House Voice rules over the red sand dunes.
The red mountains that compose its western and northern boundaries have kept Dorne separate from the rest of the realm for thousands of years.
While ancient sand settlers stylized themselves as Lord of the Wells, sand dogs roam the desert, adding to its mystique. Despite its harsh terrain, Dorne's rivers offer pockets of sustenance crucial to its inhabitants' survival. Green Blood offers the voice and the surge flourish through eastern Dorne, with the trading hubs Palanque Town at its mouth. Other significant rivers include Brimstone, Turnstein, and Wyle, each contributing to the region's subsistence. Dorne's southern coast stretches some 400 leagues in precarious, treacherous cliffside whirlpools and some safe harbors, inspired by the landscape of Wales and Spain. Dorne stands as a unique and formidable region within the realm of Westeros. Economic and military standing. Dorne, the Seven Kingdoms' least populated region, stands with a culture and economic differency compared to the other regions due to the influx of the Rhoynish immigrants and the rural area. Dornish men have established many ties with the Rhoynish customs alongside their ties of First Men and Andal origin, earning them a reputation for fiery tempers and sexual freedoms. Despite this, they face lingering imposing threats for their neighboring regions, like the Dornish marshes and the Reach.
From such origins did the three distinct types of Dornishmen we know today arise. The young dragon, King Daeron I Targaryen, gave them the names we know them by in his book, The Conquest of Dorne. Stony Dornishmen, Sandy Dornishmen, and Salty Dornishmen, he named them.
Notable among Dornish customs is the practice of granting a notable bastard the surname Sand, and painting skills instead of a sworn coat of arms. The region accommodates both the sept for the faith and red temples for the followers of R'hllor. Dorne boasts a rich array of exotic products unknown elsewhere in the Seven Kingdoms, including olives, lemons, pomegranates, plums, spices, and blood oranges. Lemon orchards are irrigated with intricate canal systems, are particularly renowned as the use of fiery dragon peppers. Local wines known as Dornish Reds are notable for their sour taste, though they have extraordinary exotic flavors, and rich ones at that. Strong wines, dark as blood and sweet in its taste, are also favored. The famed sand speed bred by the Dornish are admired by their speed and beauty, capable of traveling long journeys in the desert without maintaining little of subsistence. Sunspear's Shadow City hosts and boasts, while Planky Town serves as a vital part of the porting system within the Greenblood mouth, serving as a trading with ships across the narrow sea, and the orphans of the Greenblood use their parting galleys of the river. Military standing has long been associated with House Martell, with the claims of commanding 50,000 soldiers. However, the true military strength of Dorne altogether is undisclosed. Through speculation that the North and the Vale combined, it could be a stronghold. Historic feats such as King Forrest Fowler's campaigned against King Garth VII Gardner and House Martell. Despite its land capability and strength, Dorne's naval capability has wavered since Princess Nymeria's fiery act nearly a millennia ago. The First Men and the Andals. The first settlers of Westeros by the First Men commanded across the arm of Dorne, a landmass being a bridge spanning the narrow sea. Legend holds during their conflict, the First Men and the Children of the Forest, the children decided to shatter the arm with the hammer of water. Prominent among the First Men houses within Dorne were those who rose as kings, including House Dane, rulers of the Troyantide, House Fala, sovereigns of stone and sky, and House Ironhood, known as the Blood Royals, and seated as the High King of Dorne. Other High Kings of Dorne emerged from a colony of houses along the Green Blood. Dorne's troubled history history is marked by violence, particularly among the houses of the Red Mountains, who engaged in nonsensical feuds, raids across borders within the Dornish marches, border wars, and raids between Dornish kings, the King of the Reach and the Storm King, particularly within the deep settlements of the enemies. During the Andal invasion, Dorne largely remained untouched, saved by a few precarious travelers, Andals like the Allos, Corgiles, and Vaiths. Meanwhile, the Valyrians, Jordans, and Celtigars established their own domain. House Martell emerged victorious over the first men houses of Wards and Shelves, expanding their advance and influence near the mouth of the Greenblood, the Rhoynar in Dorne. Nymeria, the legendary war queen, led her followers on a pursuit across distant lands, including the Basilisk Isles, Sorthile, Noth, and the Summer Isle rivers, and including the Stepstones before finally settling in Dorne, the southern parts of Westeros. There she wed Lord Mors Martell of Sunspear, aiding him to unite the region underneath his rule of Nymeria's wars. Thus, House Nymeris of Martell of Sunspear was established, leading into an era where the Rhoynish and the native Dornish were intertwined. Most Rhoynar abandoned Mother Rhoyne's customs and embraced the faith of the Seven upon arriving into Westeros. King Daeron Targaryen established between three types of Dornishmen: stony, sandy, and salty, claiming the latter were their dark hair, olive skin, castle dwellings. Despite establishing the salty Dornishmen perception, traits preserved distinctive traits practice equal primogeniture, akin to the Rhoynar root. The orphans still, however, grieve for their ancestral homeland in Essos.
Some of the Rhoynar mourned the loss of the ships, and rather than embracing their new land, they took to plying the waters of the Greenblood, finding it a pale shadow of Mother Rhoyne.
Adhering to the steadfast to their customs, their river-dwelling ancestors, and still referring to themselves as orphans, having been severed from their ancestral homelands and the river Rhoyne, which holds divine reference as Mother Rhoyne. This connection to the river is deeply rooted in their faith and identity. Residing on crafts along the river Greenblood, they crafted their boat from the charred remains of the ship that carried them along the treacherous journey across the narrow sea upon their arrival in Dorne. The orphans navigate the Greenblood within trading gallows routes and acting as fisherers, gathering fruit and undertaking various tasks. Known for proficiency, some orphans trade cloth spices along the Greenblood, displaying a craft for healing of warts and other midwife things. Despite banning its practice, they still continue to speak Dornish language, albeit in secret. They established Plankytown as a bustling trading hub, acute with ships connecting passages through distant lands across the narrow sea. Many maintained a steadfastness to Dorne, but some orphans traveled back to Rhoyne, navigating its waters within the Shy Maid. Nymeria's War. Nymeria, hailing from Ny Sar and leading to the safety of her people, played a pivotal role within history. After the Valyrian Freehold tried to conquest Rhoyne, she led her people out of a tumultuous journey leading them to Dorne. There she wed Lord Mors Martell of Sunspear, forging the unification, and was the birth of House Nymeris Martell of Sunspear, but is most commonly known as House Martell, one of the esteemed great houses of Westeros. Their marriage symbolized the fusion.
Nymeria burned the Rhoynish ships. Our wanderings are at an end, she declared. We have found a new home, and here we shall live and die.
of the Martells with the Rhoynish warrior queen, marking the trading and terminology Nymeris, devoting their heritage back to Nymeria's ancestral homelands. Their steadfast motto, unbowed, unbent, unbroken, echoes the resilience and embodies by the determination of Nymeria herself. Princess Nymeria is characterized by Maester Yondel as resourceful, unconquerable, possessed cunning, skill, and sagacity. While some songs claim she was a warrior queen or a witch, these embellishes lack any actual proof. Despite not wearing arms in battle, Nymeria commanded her army, leading them across many battlefields and directing them in strong blockades. As the Princess of Dorne, Nymeria remained its unquestioned ruler.
2 more years of battle were required, but in the end it was Nymeria that Yorick Ironwood bent the knee to, and Nymeria who ruled thereafter from Sunspear.
For almost 27 years, Dorne was established as a principality, not a kingdom, for Nymeria referring to the Dornish custom style of prince and princess over her long rule. Nymeria survived numerous challenges, including assassination attempts, rebellions, and even invasions.
No fewer than 6 conquered kings were sent to the wall in golden fetters by Nymeria and her prince.
Though she remarried twice to Lord Alred of Howhold and Sir Davos Gain of Starfall, her husband served only as advisors. While she had last died, Nymeria was succeeded by her princess and eldest daughter of Lord Moore, not by her eldest son, by Sir Davos.
When at last she died, it was the eldest of her 4 daughters, by Mors Martell, who succeeded her, not her son, by Davos Dane.
This reflects the adoption of inheritance within Dornish law. This is customary as the eldest child succeeds to the throne, and not a son. Later on in the Targaryen rule, 3 centuries ago, Aegon Targaryen claimed the 7 kingdoms and invaded Westeros. During Aegon's conquest, he subjugated each of the Westerosi monarchs one by one.
Rhaenys Targaryen had no such easy conquest. Myria Martell was 80 years of age, the maesters tell us.
Except for Dorne. One of Aegon's sisters, Rhaenys Targaryen, flew overhead with her dragon, Meraxes, above the Dornish men guarding the Prince of Palace, but each Dornish castle she visited was abandoned. When she finally came to Sunspear, she met by Maria Martell, Princess of Dorne.
I will not fight you, Princess Myria told Rhaenys, nor will I kneel to you. Dorne has no king. Tell your brother that.
Who warned her that the Targaryens were not welcome and would face peril if they attacked Dorne.
I shall, Rhaenys replied. But we will come again, Princess, and the next time we shall come with fire and blood. Your words, said Princess Myria. Ours are unbowed, unbent, unbroken. You may burn us, my lady, but you will not bend us, break us, or make us bow. This is Dorne. You are not wanted here. Return at your peril.
In 4 AC, however, Aegon the Conqueror proclaimed another campaign which became the First Dornish War. Whereas other kings and lords had taken to the battle against Aegon, or holstering in castles, the Dornish refused to give him an open battle and allowed Aegon to display his dragons. Instead, they turned to ambushes and raids, seeking quick to slip back in the desert and through the mountains. Passageways, where the dragons could not find them. Aegon's younger sister wife, Queen Rhaenys, participated in these wars, which led to her eventual death. Meraxes was also killed, shot through the eye by a scorpion bolt at Harholt. In 13 AC, a peaceful agreement was severed between Dorne and the Iron Throne, which led to 17 years of peace, combating conflicts with raiders in the mountains mountains, and the dispatch of a second and third Dornish war were underway. Despite Dornish independence, House Targaryen continued to claim the Iron Throne control over the lands as part of the Seven Kingdoms. In 83 AC, the foolish king Morian Martell launched the Fourth Dornish War, but was defeated in a day by King Jaehaerys I Targaryen and his son. On his deathbed of Jaehaerys in 103 AC, it was said that even Dorne mourned the loss of Jaehaerys the Peaceful. That's all I have for you guys today on the Rhoynish in Westeros. I hope you liked this week's video, Watchers Beyond the Wall. Stay tuned for another video next week and bonus content throughout the weeks as well. Thank you so much for watching Watchers Beyond the Wall, and you have a great day.